presenter for today, as mentioned before, he's been working for more than 15 years in the field of QHSE. Now, he has been working for around 8 years as university instructor and associate professor sa Pilipinas. He is also a registered NIBOSH examiner and a licensed chemical engineer in the Philippines, where he completed his bachelor in chemical engineering sa Mapua, did his master's and doctorate of chemical engineering in University of the Philippines, Diliman, and did his master of business administration in Anglia Ruskin University. He completed various international diplomas and certifications, such as NIBOSH International Diploma in Occupational Health and Safety, as well as the International Diploma in Environment. He also did his Level 7 International Diploma in OHS Management and in Strategic Management and Leadership. He's also one of the panelists during the first NIBOSH online conference, an approved radiation safety officer by the Federal Authority Nuclear Regulation, or FANR. And lastly, he is the head of the training committee of FILSA. Siya po yung nagmamanage ng mga trainings na binibigay ng FILSA sa inyo. And if you've been with us from day one of this Management System Awareness Month, siya ho ang nag-conduct ng ating ISO 9001. So may we call on our presenter for today, Dr. Rogel Importado. Doc, the floor is yours.
Nakashare na ba ako?
Hindi pa. Okay.
Anyway, good evening, I think, sa Pilipinas. Good evening, good afternoon sa mga nasa UAE. And good day kung saan man kayo panig ng mundo. Because we are not limited with regards to geographical locations as far as our trainings are concerned. Thanks for the technology that we have right now. We can reach out to everyone who wanted to learn. So knowledge is no longer has barrier, or there's no more barrier with regards to learning and getting knowledge. So maraming salamat sa ano. And for those people who have been with us from day one of this management system month-long discussion of management system, I would like to appreciate everyone. This is a rigorous process of knowing what is the management system and the management systems that are available in as far as the ISO standard is concerned, and what makes it unique that can be applied across almost all, if not all, type and nature of organization. So that is very important for us to know that ISO standards not only limited to huge, large multinational companies, but it can also be applied even a small entrepreneurial business. Actually, probably if I have a wildest dream for considering that I am in this field, I hope that one day those people who are listening to us and hoping that learn from us, we also apply whatever things that we are doing here, not only in their own respective companies, but in future, if they have their own businesses, hopefully that they will apply the same thing. Kasi bakit common? Kasi kapag maayos yung sistema, hindi lang, at kahit sa buhay niyo siguro, kasi pag maayos yung sistema, walang pang-aabuso eh. It is hard to say that there are existing businesses that exploit, abuse people, where in fact the same people who have brought these businesses didn't come from the top. Some of them, they even went up into the ladder of their successes. No? But unfortunately, during the period, nakalimutan na nila yung natutunan nila, hindi nila na-apply. So, as I said, thank you very much for all of you for listening to us for almost a month. And this will be the last leg, if you can say, of our management systems discussion. Okay, where is it now? So, Wait for a while. Okay. So we will be going to discuss integrated management system. Actually, in other discussions, or if you will look at even in the internet, whenever they present integrated management systems, they normally discuss it as a whole, meaning um, each and every part of the integrated management systems are being discussed. Now, what makes this different from those discussions or presentations is that we have done the discussions individually for each and every component of this integrated management systems in a different in a different presentation. So we have done separate for quality management system, environmental management system, and last but not the least, of course, occupational health and safety management systems. So what makes these integrated management systems different from those is that obviously from the word integrated, we try to combine, try to consolidate, try to reconcile what are the requirements and the elements of the individual management systems that we have discussed in order for us to have a single integrated management systems that will address all of the requirements of those individual management systems. So in effect, what we wanted to have here is that we don't want to specifically focus on each and every management system, but hopefully after this discussion and after this presentation, we could cover all of the requirements in such a way that we can present it to the management as one single management system. But remember the fact that actually integrated management system is not a certified management system, which means that you could not be able to find, regardless of which country you are, that ISO, if you are aiming for an ISO certification, you'll not be able to find that your company is certified in integrated management system. At the end of the day, ISO will be issuing certifications individually with regards to the component of your integrated management systems. Like for example, if I decided, and this is the discussion that we're going to do right now, if I decided, for example, that I wanted to combine my quality management system, which is 9001, environmental management system, which is 14,001, and occupational health and safety management system, which is 45,001. And all of these standards are available in my company and has been audited and certified by ISO. Then I'll be receiving three certificates containing three individual ISO standards that shows which standard I am certified. So when I present this to the management, it will be a separate certification, but my complete management system is integrated. Then why is it that we need to discuss integrated management systems if the individual certificates will be issued later on? The main purpose of this is for us to understand that certificate can be segregated, but what is the component of that, or how are we going to satisfy the requirements of all of these management systems can be built into one solid management system or centralized management system. So this is what we wanted to understand. So the content of this training is, of course, we need to understand what is the content of this, the training objectives. Then we'll discuss the ISO standards that will form the integrated management systems. We need to define the benefits and the drawbacks of the integrated management systems, the aims of each and every ISO standard, the management frameworks of the integrated management system, the common and the unique requirements of the standards as far as IMS is concerned, and of course, those reference documents that we have used in this presentation. Oh, excuse me. So what are the objectives of this training? First, we wanted to, at the end of the training, we wanted to understand how integrated management systems work and the ideal ISO standards to be part of IMS. Okay. At this point, since we have discussed only these three standards earlier, so we are assuming that these three standards will form or will be part of these integrated management systems. But actually, there are more than other management systems that can be incorporated and be part of the integrated management system. The second objective is we wanted to be aware of the benefits of the integrated management system. And what is also the benefit if we will keep it separate. As I said, it's just a matter of whether our documentations are separated from one another or make it into one. Because at the end of the day, even if you are certified as an integrated management system or separated from each and every standard, the certificates that you'll be receiving after satisfying the requirement of the ISO for those standards will be separated also. So, but we need to understand why they have separate systems. Third is that to understand the consolidated aims of the IMS. So, meaning we wanted to cover all of the aims of the standards that form part of the integrated management system. We need to familiarize ourselves with the PDCA of the integrated management system, the requirements of the integrated management system, and we need to know what are other ISO standards that can be formed or that be part of the integrated management system. Okay. So what is the integrated management system? It is a combination of all aspects of the organization systems, processes, standards into one smart system. So if you look at this diagram, sorry, not diagram, but the photo or attached picture here, you'll see that all the individual, it is like a jigsaw puzzle wherein you will try to connect and put into one major system all of the individual requirements of these standards and made into one integrated management system. So it means like it's like an additive addition. You will not be creating or you will not be developing a new system, but actually you just try to adopt what are the commonalities of these management systems, and we need to add or take into consideration the differences of these management systems. The second is the integration is seamless, meaning it's easy. So that, and that is because of the Annex SL high level structure that has been developed by NIBOS. Sorry, by ISO, NIBOS, sorry. So there are 10 clauses of this standard, and which make it easier. So they made it equal or the same for all. So it will be easier to integrate. And this has started only when they developed the ISO 45001. It was actually a, how will you say this, controversial management system. 45,001 is a very controversial management system, and I think that is one of the longest management systems ever created by ISO. Apparently because actually it is the only management system developed by ISO that has never been copied to any standard from any other country. Unlike for ISO 9001 or ISO 14001, they have British standard or American standard or Australian standard where they take this information. But what makes 45001, which is Occupational Health and Safety Management System, makes it so unique because it has not been copied to any existing any country standard. So they develop on their own. It is so controversial. Why it is so controversial? Because major part of the 45001, if you will recall last week's discussion, was about worker participation. And not all the countries in the world encourages participation of workers, not even involvement of workers. Although there is an international standard or international law that governs the human rights of the people, which is the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, which they created the International Labor Organization (ILO). You'll notice that not all countries are willing to embrace that. Because as far as ILO is concerned, it is a tripartite system, meaning there's an involvement of the employer, the employee, and the state or the government. That's the reason why in the Philippines, it is a very strong part of any organization to have a union representative, yung trade union, no? Sa Pilipinas. Ibang, kaya mayroong nakataging kilosang Mayo 1, yung mga ganyan ba. And unfortunately, in other countries, they are not willing to accept that, especially like for us here in UAE, it is prohibited to have union. We cannot make or create it is not being recognized legally to have a trade union. So we are not allowed to create unions. No? So it was so controversial because it was in the mind of ISO during that time, how they consolidate all of the differences of the culture standards of different countries and made into one single standard that can be fit to all. So it was a long process. So now let's go to the benefits. Why is it that we need to have an integrated management system? First thing is that it normally reduces the documentation and promotion of single system to reduce the resources to the management. Later on, when we describe the structure of the integrated management system, you'll see that almost 90%, if not 90%, almost 80 to 90% of the requirements of the integrated management system are actually common to all individual standards. So having a single integrated management system will reduce the documentation and necessary resources. What are the other resources? Aside from manpower, you need to have time, you need to have, of course, financial resources, you need to have competency requirement of those people who will be managing the system. So all of this, not only paper, ink, computer, equipment, not only those things, the totality of the resources will be reduced a lot if it is integrated. Next is, of course, since it will be into one, so then there will be efficiency in the system. Efficiency means it is a factor of time, money. So meaning you were able to achieve your objective at the smallest or the least possible time with the least possible resources. That is the definition of efficiency. So in having integrated management system, we are trying to remove the duplication. It also lowers the cost through avoidance of duplication in the standards, procedures, work record keeping, so on and so forth. Okay, so of course, if you have 3 separate management system standards, and you in each and every standard, management system standards, you have segregated documentation. So hiwalay yung lahat ng documentation mo ng QMS mo, hiwalay ang 14,001 EMS mo, hiwalay. Isipin mo na lang kung gaano kadami yung mini-maintain mong documentation. Okay, so that is the main issue of having a separate management system, documentation. Of course, there's a consistency in the format because if, for example, since you have so many documents that you need to maintain and monitor and update, there will be chances, this is part of human error, there will be chances of sleep, you missed out something. Then what happens is that there might be differences in the format, content. Probably you may have updated this section in your quality management system, which is related to your environmental management system. But in your environmental management system documentation, it was not updated. So imagine the rigorous process of reviewing, updating, maintaining the documentations if each and every management systems are separated from one another. It's easier to prioritize because the moment you discuss matters about integrated management system, you are covering the three requirements already of the standards. You're covering the product, the issue of products and services and the customer requirements of your quality management system. You are concerned about what will be the impact of these products and services to the environment, whether it has a beneficial impact or there is an adverse impact to the environment. And last but not the least, during the process of the production and the service, rendering of service of the company, how is it affect the employees, the people involved, the stakeholders? So it means it covers already holistically the requirements of all of these standards. It avoids conflict and narrow decision making because most of the time, if a person is dedicated only to look after quality management system, definitely his attention is only just to customer satisfaction, customer focus. While, of course, for someone who's involved in environmental management system, like in the Philippines, you have a pollution control officer, he or she doesn't care what is the outcome to the customer, especially the environmental management system requirement needs to meet the minimum requirement, which is the legal requirement. I don't care what do you want to say about the customer. For me, I wanted to make sure that whatever your process is needs to comply with the legal requirement. If you are only after with the environmental management system, and so on and so forth, as far as other management system is concerned. So having an integrated management system means you are avoiding that conflict because if you are considering the integrated management system, then you need to balance the requirements both on the customer side, on the environmental impact side, and the impact to the human beings. So it's not like a matter of, it's not, they call that siloed or isolated. No, they're all interlinked and interrelated. So that will solve the problem, especially remember the management system has been developed in order to assist the top management in their decision making. Okay. Encourage prioritization and resource utilization because apparently businesses have so many things to think of apart from generating or ensuring that there is a constant revenue, or not constant but increasing revenue, market share, or so on and so forth. They're also concerned about legal compliance and whatever resources are necessary to ensure that they provide all of these resources to the company so that the organization will proceed in accordance to their intended objectives. So it's very important that in the integrated management system, all of these requirements are placed into one, and it's easier to look into that rather than have a separate, you can say, separate areas of concern wherein you may consider primarily, if you are more into quality, you are more into customer focus, unlike, for example, if you look for all aspects of the IMS. Okay. Saan galing tong red na to? Wala naman akong ginagawa. Now, next is applying the benefits from good initiatives in one area to other areas. And encourage closer working and equal influence because sometimes, you cannot deny the fact that since we are involved in one organization, and there might be some politics. Politics is very important in ensuring that there is a smooth flow of business. And unfortunately, if there are different people involved in managing different standards, like there is a separate quality assurance officer, there is there is a pollution control officer only for the environment, then there is a safety officer only for occupational health and safety. Chances are they have different points of views, of course, different motivations and different objectives why in front of the management. So when they present something to the management, of course, that there is a bias on that. So the moment the management decided, okay, I will consider 60% of your requirement quality, I will give you. Then the rest of 40% will be shared by the health and safety and environment. There will be issues of conflict because why it was favored, why mine is not given more priorities. These kind of things will be avoided if you have an integrated management system because same person or persons are not only looking individually to the management system requirement, but actually holistically. Okay. And encourage the spread of positive culture because, like as I said, okay, you wanted harmony in your discussion in your business. Sorry. Provide scope for the integration. Eraser. I think someone who is linked to me have placed this red because hindi ko siya matanggal. Okay. Provide scope for the integration of other risk areas such as food safety. Okay. Now, of course, there's also a drawback or there's a disadvantage or there are disadvantages of having integrated management systems, which in turn, there are benefits of having separate management systems. What are those? Normally, if you have a separate management system, there is a flexible approach in tailoring your requirements or your needs in terms of the operating philosophy of that particular management system. Like for example, safety standards can separate what you call this separate and focusing more in the minimum legal requirements. While on the part of information security, for example, they are only dependent on the internal security requirements. So these differences can be, you can say, benefit because the people involved separately for these management systems can focus more on the specific operating philosophy. Magkakaiba kasi sila ng purpose eh. Iba yung purpose ng safety, iba ang purpose ng security. Ang safety, ang principle ng safety, know it all. Walang secret daw sa safety. Samantalang si security naman, may confidentiality kasi may threat. Hindi ko pwedeng kailangan ibigay lahat. So imagine the conflict between these two. Okay? So how can you be able to totally integrate it because the people involved may not have knowledge about the consolidation of this? Separate systems might be clearer for external stakeholders. For example, regulators. Pumunta yung DOLE sa inyo o OSHC, no? DOLE nga, hindi nga ISO standard certified, no? So they may not be aware about the management systems. Okay? So what more if there are 2, 3 management systems made into one in your organization? The regulator, for example, for the environment, there is a pollution control inspector, and that person is knowledgeable only about the environment. And then you present your documentations to that person. These are my documents. Okay, so where is your environment, this, and that? That is integrated to this. This is part of, if you read, there is already quality there. No. How will I know whether this is this? You see, because of the restriction of the competency, probably of other stakeholders, you might be also experiencing challenges and explaining to them the content of your documentation of your management system because they are not separated. Unlike, for example, if I have a separate management system only intended for environment and I present it to the pollution control inspector, that is very clear because specifically the management system addresses the requirement of the environmental standards and environmental law. But for example, if you present to me your legal requirements, all the legal requirements containing quality, environment, security, health and safety, energy management, then if the person is not fully aware, he will be having difficulty. And you know, regulators, they are not, how will you say that? They are not very, ano nga ba to? Hindi sila ganun pasensyoso. there is some kind certain level of requirements that they need to satisfy because they need to comply. They need to have number, they need to comply, especially may mga minsan may mga quota-quota pa yan, ano? Ganito kadami dapat ang natapos ng inspection in a month. So those kind of things may be a trigger factor for them to require you to provide clear information. Promotes clear management structure, delegating authorities and responsibilities. Because, as I said, for example, in integrated management system, if you are already the one in charge of quality, environment, and then health and safety, and then there is a cross functional level that is only limited, for example, in your joint venture organization, that this organization only have 9001 or quality management system. So imagine the difficulty on the part of management structure that, okay, this person only limited to quality, and then you are involving three standards or three management system. How are you going to consolidate sometimes the requirements, the rules, the responsibilities? So remember, if you have studied safety, health and safety, there is a policy, and the policy gives us primarily the organizational structure so that it will be clear the roles and the responsibilities and the line of reporting, the delegation. If it is not, if it is mixed up, then how will you know whether you are responsible? At ito pang napakamahirap sa ano, no? Pag hindi klaro kasi magaling magbintangan or magsisihan. No? So kapag hindi klaro, napakahirap na i-present yun sa management. It encourages more detailed and focused approach for auditing standards. Of course, if I'm an auditor of QMS or quality management system, and I'll be given, for example, 2 days or 3 days, I can thoroughly study the management system, each and every element of the management systems as far as quality assurance is concerned. Unlike if, for example, you will be, okay, you will add another 1 day or 2 days for me to cover the entire QMS, EMS, and health and safety management system. Imagine the focus. Imagine the time that I just need to compromise, because definitely I cannot focus my entire 2 days to check only the quality assurance. Unlike if I am an auditor only for environmental management system, I can devote my time, I can focus, I can not only focus but only research more on the improvements for the management system, because at the end of the day, all management systems aim is always for continual improvement. So this is one of the thing that is good in a separate management system. Clear set of objectives for improvement with measurable results. As I said, if I have a separate management system, separate objective. So I can focus onto that, separate objective. If I have 2 or 3 objectives for quality for a year, then that's good. Another 2 or 3 for environment, another 2 or 3 for health and safety. But for those who are handling integrated management system, if, for example, there is a norm that, okay, for example, your company wanted only 6 or 5, you will see that you are being limited to the number of objectives for each and every management system, because you need to cover the holistic aspect of your management system. There's a structured approach to risk assessment within an organization. As I said, hiwalay yung risk assessment mo sa health and safety, hiwalay yung risk assessment mo para sa environment. Kung meron kang risk assessment kasi hindi naman siya nire-require ng quality, meron ka. Pero if in case that you have integrated management system, as I said, it's very difficult to integrate the environmental risk assessment and quality risk assessment, as well as occupational health and safety management system risk assessment. Maraming pag may mga cases na conflicting. I'll give you an example. In environment, okay, fire is actually an impact to the environment. Aspect. Fire is an aspect because it pollutes the environment. It is an aspect. But in health and safety, okay, fire can be the outcome, which is the risk. Pag pinagtabi mo ang 14,001 at 45,001, pinagtabi mo ang terminology nila, ang sabi, yung daw aspect ng environment ay parang katulad daw siya ng hazard ng health and safety. At yung impact daw ng environment ay parang katulad ng risk daw ng health and safety. Saan mo ngayon ilalagay yung fire mo? Yung fire mo sa environment, nasa aspect eh. Tapos, yung fire mo naman sa health and safety ay nasa risk. You see the difference? Sometimes you think you need to consider all of these compromises and when you try to consolidate the management system requirements. Allows close monitoring of all systems. Of course, if you have given time and resources, you can monitor individual systems. You can audit you can monitor the performance of the auditors. Okay? Policies. In my example, for example, in my case, nag-audit ako ng environment at saka health and safety. Kaya lang, along the way, may nakikita akong mga issue ng quality. Hindi ko naman siya malagay sa record ko during my audit. Hindi ko malagay as finding kasi hindi naman ako nag-audit ng quality. Ngayon, mayroong isang departamento na kung saan siya involved sa quality, binibigay ko na lang. Whether may mangyari or may kahihinatnan yung pagbibigay ko ngayon, hindi ko alam, hindi ko na kontrolado. So see, that is the good thing about separate management systems, okay? You can focus more into that. So unlike if I'm considering all quality management systems, I may not be able to capture that. I may not be able to capture that because what I'm saying is that I'm just brushing aside or trying to what you call this, push aside all of the requirements in one time. Meron ka ba neto sa quality? Meron ka ba neto sa environment? So imagine, pag sabah-sabahin mo yon during the audit, sakit sa ulo. Masakit sa ulo. Okay? Now, existing systems may work well and the process of integration may spend unnecessary resources, affect their effectiveness. Minsan, may prinsipyo nga na kung hindi naman din nakakasagabal, bakit mo kailangan baguhin? Yun yung principle ng may benefit ka na separate systems. Kasi maayos naman tumatakbo naman. Baka pagka in-integrate ko, baka lalong gumulo. Baka during the time of my integration, I will be requiring more resources that the company could not be able to provide, messing around what has been supposed to be an organized process. That is the problem of having integrated management system. Any question at this point?
Wala pa naman po, Doc.
Wala pa. Hindi kasi, nasanay ako doon sa nakatawa ako, nung nagturo ako sa ang sabi sa akin ay hinto-hinto naman daw ako paminsan-minsan at dire-diretso daw ako magsalita.
Baka po may gustong i-share yung mga participants, no? Kasi syempre medyo mahaba-haba discussion, ganun. So pwede po kayong mag-unmute kung meron po kayong gustong itanong or idagdag sa nabanggit before we proceed sa in-depth discussion, no?
Papasok na tayo sa mismong ISO standard.
Doc, magandang gabi po.
Magandang gabi din po.
Doc, magandang gabi.
Yes po.
May tanong lang po ako. Di ba yung tatlo po, kunyari, yung tatlong standard ay ipapa-accredit yung tatlong standard na yan.
Certify po tawag doon. Certify.
Po, sir?
Certify ang tawag po.
Okay, certify po. Bali, paano po pag nag-failed yung isa, hindi siya covered as IMS or dalawa lang yung maa-approve, masi-certified?
Dalawa lang po kasi hiwalay naman po ang certification nila.
Ay, ganun po. Akala ko pag sinabing IMS is combination na ng tatlo.
Ang IMS po ay, which is may di-discuss natin ng mamaya in detail, yun lang set of your requirements and documentations. Hindi nyo na lang uulitin yung mga dokumento nyo So kung for example, meron kayong policy sa quality, tapos meron kayong policy na naman sa environment, may policy kayo sa health and safety, hindi nyo kailangan produce ng tatlong policies. Isang policy pwede na that covers all of that. So it means it's just a matter of combining all the requirements into one single standard. But when they're being audited, either by your internal auditors, external auditors, which are your certification body auditors that will give you the certification standard requirements, they will be looking at the individual requirements still of each and every standard in your integrated management system. Nakukuha niyo po ba ibig sabihin?
Yes sir, yes sir. Ayun lang.
Kahit isang dokumento lang kayo, kailangan nasa loob ng tatlo. Pero pag in-audit kayo ng quality, para bigyan kayo ng quality standard, kailangan nasasagot ninyo yung individual requirements ng quality management system.
Okay.
Pag nag-fail kayo sa environment, dito hindi kayo mabibigyan ng environmental certification.
Yun lang po, Doc. Thank you po.
Maraming pong salamat. Pwede na ba magtuloy?
May isa pa hong question from Sir
Sure.
Roger. Sa performance audit po ba may basis or tools? If ever, what would it be?
Di-discuss natin mamaya. Ayokong i-preempt yung Andun lang ako sa stage na baka may question kayo about those benefits among the separate and the integrated management system. Kaya ako siya pinigil. Kasi yung tools na pinag-uusapan natin, that will be part of the individual requirements of the standard. So, discuss natin yan. I-recall nyo, ano ba to? Remind nyo
Balikan
lang.
natin.
Sige. Na lang para mamaya masagot. Okay,
ito last question lang, Doc, no? Which is related dun sa kaninang discussion ng benefits. No? Do you suggest that companies or establishment apply for 3 certifications all at the same time?
It all depends on the capability of the organization to provide the necessary resources. Kasi po, hindi ganun kadali magpa-certify. It's not just something na pwede ninyong, although, that is on the idealistic side. Okay, alam naman natin sa market, may nabibiling certification. No? Pero kung ikaw ay dadaan doon sa tamang proseso kasi gusto mo ma-improve yung sistema ninyo, because that is the end purpose of that, hindi po madaling magpa-certify. Isipin ninyo kung gaano daming documentation ang kailangan ninyong i-produce to prove that you satisfy the requirements of this particular standard. And like what I said, even though if you have an integrated management system as a documentation, still you need to satisfy the individual requirements of each and every standard. So nasa loob ng integrated management system documentation mo, yung nilalaman ng quality requirement mo, ng environment mo, at saka ng health and safety mo. Now, what do I mean by necessary resources? Kailangan mo ng tao, kailangan mo ng equipment, kailangan mo ng level of competency kasi ang auditor ng quality, hindi mo pwedeng pagawin yan ng environment at health and safety and vice versa for all of this. So kung lahat yan ipagagawa mo, kailangan competent yung tao yun, nag-train yun sa 3 standards na yun. So ibig sabihin, these necessary requirements needs to be provided by the organization if in case they wanted to proceed in one time. I'm not discrediting those people who could not be able to do that in one time. But if you wanted to have an effective management system, it all depends on the capability of the organization to provide these resources. Because at the end of the day, anyway, pag-discuss natin na later on, kailangan natin ng top management leadership and commitment to support the effectiveness of the management systems. I hope that I answered the question.
Most probably naman po, Doc, kasi nag-agree rin siya sa through chat box. So pwede na tayo mag-proceed. Other questions will be
Thank you. Jura, sino kaya naglagay na itong pulan to? Di ko naman nilalagay ito.
Hindi ko rin matanggal eh.
Ano ba to? Anyway, sige. Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
Now, this is actually a concentric circles that defines the uh, you can say the boundaries of the implementation of these standards as far as their individual philosophy is concerned. Kasi 9,001 philosophy niya, quality assurance, 14,001 environmental management, at ang 45,001 naman ay occupational health and safety. No? So this is the boundary. So definitely each and every standard have its own aim. Ito, kinuha ko lang naman ito sa sa ISO standards nila. Pag sinamarize natin ito, ang objective talaga, ang aim talaga ng ISO ng 9001 is to have a consistent provision of products and services that meets customer and legal requirements. Okay? And enhance customer satisfaction. Dalawa lang. Kaya kung titingnan niyo doon, kung mababalikan niyo yung framework, which is, papakita ko rin naman mamaya, okay? You'll see that in the output of the PDCA process in the end of the QMS, you need to have either you produce your products and services which satisfies the legal requirements and customer requirements and customer satisfaction, enhanced customer satisfaction. Unlike for 14,001 and 45,001, actually parehas lang halos sila. Nagkaiba lang dahil magkaiba yung focus of their philosophy. So 14,001, focus niya environment, kaya focus niya ay protection to the environment. Okay? Or mitigate, meaning reduce the adverse or negative impact to the environment. Kasi meron namang beneficial impact ang ayun ang kaibahan ng 14,001, may positive impact siya, no? Hindi siya laging negative. Okay? In-enhance mo, may magandang nangyari, no? Nag-improve. Apart from that, minimum requirement of the 14,001 is also to fulfill the compliance obligation, which is actually a legal requirement, and other requirements because you have stakeholders, may regulator ka, meron kang community, meron requirement ng community sa'yo. Hindi ka pa pwedeng maglabas ng usok ng proseso mo, no? Meron ding requirement ang ang mga customers mo, clients mo. 'Di ba ngayon, Starbucks hindi na sila gumagamit ng plastic, paper cups na lang. So may mga demand on each and every stakeholder, and that needs to be fulfilled. Third, you need to demonstrate that you enhance your environmental performance. At dito papasok yung kaninang tanong na mamaya ako sasagutin. No? You need to measure your or evaluate your environmental performance in order for you to achieve this aim. Otherwise, there's no point of doing this management system kung hindi naman i-enhance yung performance ng organization as far as environmental management is concerned. And last but not the least is to achieve the environmental objective. Bakit? Kasi yung objective mo, naka-tie up ito sa sa policy mo. Okay? Naka-tie up itong objective mo sa policy mo. Meaning, later on when we discuss the policy, okay, you require that all your objectives should be achieved because that is the only way for you to satisfy whatever you have written in your policy. Okay. And 45,001, ang focus niya ay para sa tao, kaya protection naman, or prevention of injury or protection of worker. Next is, aside dito sa we need to identify hazard and risk. Next is fulfillment also of the legal requirement and improving performance as far as health and safety. So, etong lahat ng ito, kung ito'y balak mong gawing integrated management system ng iyong kumpanya, lahat ito dapat mong masatisfy. Hindi po pwedeng isa lang o dalawa lang o baka pwedeng kalahati lang ba na. Hindi po pwede. Lahat ito. Okay? So if I will combine all of the PDCA processes that we have discussed last time, this is actually the end result. That you have a PDCA process wherein the input of that process is nothing but the requirements of your three requirements of your standards. That's why it's called IMS requirements. And the result or the output is your IMS also. So Ganun lang siya kadali. No? Dali lang, no? Daling isipin ang integrated management system. Bakit hindi natin gawin lahat? But like what I said and what was asked also in the question is, do we have enough resources to do that? I remember when I was teaching in sorry to say, I'm not getting or ano, I'm not against to Far Eastern University. When I used to be in the Philippines, when I was teaching in the College of Engineering of Far Eastern University, I was one of those nung na-reinstate ang College of Engineering ng FEU. Isa ako doon sa mga pioneers na kinuhang professor doon. Before my resignation during that time, bago ko pumunta rito sa Dubai, I remember they were having that plan of making the College of Engineering ISO 9001 certified. Okay. So they have asked us our opinions. We had a meeting. Then my stand during that time was, it is an ambitious project. Kasi as hinano kami para magturo, hindi naman kami management people. Although I know ISO 9001 during that time, because I used to work in the chemical manufacturing industry that had, and I was part of the certification of ISO 9002 during that time. Huwag niyo lang tanongin yung year, no? Baka ma-detect pa yung edad ko. No? Pero the question is, do you have enough resources for you to even dream about that requirement? So my question during that time to the Dean of the College of Engineering and to the administrators that time is, are you aware what will be the requirements or the necessary resources that we need to have for us to proceed with that? Because it's an ambitious project concerning kasi sa ibang bansa at kahit siguro sa state colleges and universities, pag ikaw ay binigyan ng full load, no? Mga 2-2 subject lang yan eh. Kaya nga may tinatawag na master. Kaya kailangan may master's degree man lang pag nagturo ka sa college. No? Kasi may mastery of subject matter. Hindi ka pa pwedeng magkaroon ng mastery of the subject matter kung 10 subject ang ituturo mo na magkakaiba. No? That is the main reason. And you are required to produce publications, researches when you are teaching in the university. Ang tanong ko noon time na yon is, do you have enough resources? Do you know what are the resources necessary for us to proceed with this? It was so sarcastic that the way I said during that time was, please do your homework first because you are just disturbing us. Supposedly, we are supposed to teach. Dapat nagtuturo ako sa panahon na to. You are just disturbing me. Kasi kung hindi ninyo ginawa yung ano niyo, no? Yung inyong homework para i-discuss sa amin, there's no point for us to discuss about these things. So why I'm saying these things? Napakadaling sabihin mag-IMS tayo. Pero the question is, do we have enough resources? And what I said, resources hindi lang pera. Although pera ay malaking parte nito. May tao ba tayong gagawa niyan? May oras ba? May enough competency ba tayo? May enough equipment ba tayo? Because remember, it's not like a one-time deal. It is a continual improvement. It means that you need to make sure that you can maintain and sustain the system. Okay? I'll give you the bird's eye view of what are the requirements of the integrated management system. You'll see green boxes here represents common requirements among all standards. Okay. Yellow represents the requirements common only to environmental management system and occupational health and safety management system. And blue is limited only to quality assurance or quality management system. Pag tinignan mo siya ng isang tinginan, wow, ang dami palang common sa kanila. Ba't kailangan ko pang paghiwa-hiwalin? This is actually the reason why people are actually encouraged to go for integrated management system kasi hindi ko na kailangang ulit-ulitin itong mga nasa green na to and make several documentation if I wanted to have separate management systems. That is the most ideal part. Integrate po natin. Pero ang tanong, pag in-integrate, kaya mo ba? No? Kaya mo. But if you have already separated management system, okay, separated, existing, and then you decided, what the hell am I doing? Checking, reviewing, updating several sets of documentations which are repetitive. Paulit-ulit ko kine-check yung policy ng magkakaibang standard. Kine-check ko yung awareness, yung competency, lahat ng magkakaibang standard. Di isa na lang checking ko, gagawa ko ng common management system documentation that will address everything. Kasi ginagawa ko na siya. Wala naman ng pagkakaiba sa pagkakahiwalay, nabawasan niya yung trabaho ko. Pero for those people who doesn't have, okay, for those people who don't have even knowledge on how management system works, and right there and then, meron namang yellow lumabas. May management system na walang kaalam-alam doon sa management system, bigla-bigla mong sasalpakan na integrated, parang ano lang yan, bagong panganak, tapos pinakain mo agad ang Cerelac. You need to make sure that the system works and the system favors the management, not to be a bottleneck or a burden to the management. Okay. To give you the clauses of the integrated management system, since pagsasama-samahin na natin, isipin ninyo yung nasa gitna na to, these are common requirements for all these three standards. In clause 4, there are 4 sub-clauses. Common, understanding of the organization and its context, understanding of the needs and expectations, so on and so forth. You can read that. I don't need to mention again. If you look at clause 5 also, they're common, except for addition of 5.4, which is consultation and participation of workers. That's the reason why it is included in the PDCA at the center part of your PDCA. Sa clause 6, kung mapapansin ninyo, dalawa yung common subclause, pero kung titingnan ninyo sa 14,001 and sa 45,001, may sub-clauses pa, hindi lang 6.1, may 6.1.2, 6.1.3, 6.1.4. And you will see, since magkaiba kasi yung focus ng 14,001 to 45,001, even though they are the same, their philosophy are different. 14,001 focuses on environment. That's why they need to identify separately the environmental aspects, which is the counterpart of hazard identification in the 45,001. So on and so forth. Yung legal requirements and other requirements of 45,001 is actually the compliance obligations of 14,001. So if you notice, you can combine again this 14,001 and 45,001 requirements of the subclauses 6.1 into one kasi magkaiba lang nga sila ng focus. No? You need to make sure na yung ilalagay mong information is relevant dun sa standard requirements. And what is unique in 9001, it has another subclause which is planning of changes. Actually, etong 9001 na to, mapapakita natin later mamaya, na meron na ito eh. Meron din ito sa 14,001 at sa 45,001. Kaya lang, hindi siya ginawang separate clause, ay subclause. Meron siya, pamaya papakita ko, paalala niyo sa akin. Andun din siya. Kasi, pag wala kasi siya, i-violate mismo ng ISO yung kanyang principle of PDCA. How can you manage a change if you have not planned it ahead of time? Okay, there might be some temporary or unplanned, but if there are cases that you need to have changes, you need to plan that. So the plan, do, check, act needs to work each and every aspect of these clauses. At sabi ko nga gano'n, may nagtanong sa akin, and when I was teaching, one of my students, nagturo kasi ako sa sa Poland, nakaraan. One of my Swedish students asked me, why is it that when you were discussing the individual elements of the management system, it seems like it is also a PDCA. I said, yes, each and every section of these clauses are PDCA. I'll give you an example. Ang policy, nasa clause number 5, leadership. Okay. Pero di ba pag gumawa ka ng policy, kailangan mo munang pagplanuhan. Hindi naman basta-basta ka lang maglalagay kung saan-saan yan. Kailangan mo pagplanuhan kasi alam mo dapat kung anong ilalagay mo doon. Yung actual na paggawa ng policy, do yun eh. And implementation of what you have placed there is do. Then obviously, at the end, you need to make sure that you will review your policy to make it suitable. Then that is the checking part. And anything that you have seen, like holes or gaps in the policy, you need to act that. So you need to act onto that. Meaning you need to address those gaps and holes that you have identified in your current policy. So you'll see one aspect, or so one clause, sub-clause of this standard follows the PDCA process. Parang ganito lang yan eh. May malaki kang gear. Ano yung gear, yung may ngipin? Sa mga mechanical engineering, may idea yan. Di ba bago tumakbo yung gear na malaki, may nakakonektang maliit na gear. Na kung saan yung ngipin ng maliit na gear na yon, pag gumalaw yun yung magtutulak sa malaking gear. So magdidikit-dikit kayo ng maliliit na gear, yung galaw noon, dapat yun PDCA lahat. So that the complete process will follow the PDCA process. Otherwise, if one will violate the PDCA process, the entire system will not work. Di ba ganun sa relo natin? May gear na gumagana. No? I hope you understand what I'm saying here. That if you wanted to implement an integrated management system, you need to make sure that all of these requirements belonging to the original requirements of the individual standards needs to be satisfied. So dumami siya. Pero ang kagandahan, kahit marami siya, hindi mo na kailangang ulit-ulitin yung mga documentation that satisfies the common requirements of that common in the sense that similar requirements for all the standards. So let's go to the context of the organization. Ano ba yung ibig sabihin ng context of the organization? Can someone tell me, para at least may idea ako kung ano yung tingin ninyo? Can you please unmute or ano ba nangyari? Okay? Can someone tell me, ano ba yung, ano ko ba ito ibabalik? Okay, sorry. Can tell me, ano bang ibig sabihin sa tingin niyo yung context of the organization? Forget about itong mga pinag-usasabi ko rito. Kasi, alam niyo, andito na tayo sa stage ng implementation na tayo eh. Pwede ba may magsabi sa akin kung ano ba sa tingin ninyo yung context of the organization? Kasi baka context ako ng context nito, hindi mo naiintindihan. Meron po ba na malakas ang loob? Alam niyo kung meron man ako natuwa na sa mga ibang lahi. Kahit hindi nila alam, tanong sila ng tanong. Mga Pilipino tahimik. Hindi mo alam kung ano nasa isip. Okay. Nakita niyo po ba? Pag-usapan muna natin yung external issues. Ito lang naman yan eh. Okay. Sorry. Paano ninyo i-define? Kung kayo ay hinihinga ng kumpanya, okay, bigyan mo nga ako ng external issues na sa tingin ko kailangan natin. Di ba pagka bago ka gumawa ng isang proseso or pag nagbibigay ka ng sa profile ng kumpanya ninyo. Di ba kailangan dapat i-consider mo nasaan ba ako? Or anong bansa ba nandito yung kumpanya? Kasi bakit nakaka-apekto kasi ito eh. Kung ikaw ay nasa Middle East, iba yung lokasyon mo. Ikaw nasa Pilipinas, iba rin yung setup mo, no? Dahil iba yung requirements. Kailangan mo rin consider yung geography. Malapit ba ako sa dagat? Malapit ba ako sa bundok? Gano'n kalayo sa city? Kailangan may consider yun eh. Kung ikaw ay magtatayo ng isang business. Okay? Ano ba ang kailangan ng batas? Kasi sa Pilipinas, ang daming batas. No? May constitution na, may civil law na, may case law na, tapos meron pang Sharia law. No? Maraming klaseng batas na kailangan isagin kung ikaw magtatayo ng isang business sa Pilipinas. Ano ba ekonomiya ng isang bansa ay ng bansa kung saan ka nandoon? Kasi kung third world country ng Pilipinas, maaaring cheaper ang resources ko rito. Pero kung ikaw magtatayo, for example, branch mo na sa Brazil o sa ibang bansa, no? Maaaring iba yung presyo niyan. Kailangan ko na malaman kung, teka, may sapat ba akong tao kung sakaling magtatayo ako ng negosyo? Yung level of education sa Pilipinas, mataas ang literacy rate, no? Pero may mga parte ng mundo na mabababa. So pag nagtayo ako ng business doon, baka kailangan ko ng resources. Yung level of education, as what I said, ito napaka-importante. Gaano ba importante yung healthcare doon sa bansa o sa lugar na magtatayo ako ng negosyo? Marami bang ospital doon? May clinic ba? Baka nandun ako sa liblib na lugar na wala man lang ni clinic na available. So, healthcare, no? Number 1, lalo ngayon sa Pilipinas, mag-e-election. We need to know the political issues kasi maaaring yung business ko maapektuhan. Baka itong kumakandidato na to, pag ito yung nanalo, against pala siya sa business ko. No? Or for example, nangyari dito sa Ukraine nung ginera siya ng Russia. No? So, ito mga to, dahil pag ito nangyari, maapektuhan yung business ko. Yun yung external issues. Kailangan mo rin consider yung tradition. Or ano ba to, no? Religion. Kasi maaaring siya, no? Maaaring yung bansa may mga restriction as far as the religion is concerned. May mga traditions na hindi po pwedeng gawin. And your company, being an international company, may not be able to exercise that. Especially here in the UAE, mahigpit yung may Sharia law, may mga tao na dito hindi po pwede yung magkakasama kayo sa isang may babae, lalo lokal na babae, tapos kasama mo sa isang kwarto, hindi po pwede yun. May certain restrictions. No? At saka yung court system nila, you need to know also the court system. So, ito yung mga dapat mo iisipin kapag nag-asong ka ng context of your organization. Externally, externally. Now, let's say about the internal. Ano mga dapat kong tingnan as far as my internal issues are concerned? Ano ba yung mga activities ko? Welding fabrication ba ako? So may welding ako doon kung aking business ay fabrication, may welding, may grinding, may siguro may may ano to, cutting. So, ano yung, so kung alam ko yung business ko, magkaka-idea na kung ano yung mga hazards involved dun sa business ko. Hazards and aspects of my business. Kasi, alam ko na kung ano yung na-expect ko na activity eh. After that, may idea dapat ako yung history or background of my company. Napaka-importante kasi yung background or history ng isang kumpanya. Kasi that normally defines the values and the mission and the vision of the company. May dati na bang violator ba to dati o maganda ba ang dating performance nito? O bakit ganun? Ba't bumagsak ang expectation na, no? Yung workers mo, philosophy. Ano ba sila? Are they after with what you call this? Are they into business or are they into what you call this? Like for example, in the case of FILSA, we are more onto advocacy. So dapat alam mo yun. And each and every worker should share this same philosophy. May mga union, expectations, or not. Minsan kasi wala naman. Tulad dito, wala namang union dito.
Yung culture, culture of organization.
Culture din sa, no? Leadership and what you call this? Leadership and management. Ano bang klaseng meron ng kumpanya? Leadership at management. Yung values and culture of the organization. Dapat mong titingnan din yan. Yung supply chain mo. Napaka-importante lalo na nitong nag-pandemic. Kasi apektado ka. Yung availability of your contractors. Lalo na kung ang project mo ay kailangan, tawag doon, kailangan ng tao no, outside of your organization. So, ito lang naman yan, and the level of competence, of course. Of your people, of the management, so on and so forth. So, ito yung mga dapat mong tingnan. No? Pagka ikay magde-define ng context of the organization. Ngayon, apart from that, kailangan din natin malaman sino yung mga interested parties natin. Interested parties. Yung iba, lalagay, sabi, stakeholders daw ang tawag. Unang-una na yung nakalimutan yung owner. Pag-aari niya yan. Okay? Baka yung top management, general manager, GM, o kaya CEO mo, mga managers mo. Yan yung mga interested parties mo internally eh. Sino pa ba? Yung government, empleyado mo muna. Sorry, kalimutan ko naman. Employees or workers. Yan. Tapos, external tayo. Yung government mismo, stakeholder mo yan.
Doc, excuse me, meron mo ba yung screen na share?
Ano pa?
Meron po kayo screen sharing o wala?
Ay, hindi niyo po nakikita?
Hindi po, ikaw lang nakikita namin.
Ano pa? Ano to? Wait. Siya na, wala ka. Hindi ko alam. Pero
Stop mo lang muna, Doc, yung sharing mo, tapos share ko ulit.
okay, sorry. I think hindi ko ano, iba yung ano. First time kasi gumamit ako na.
Doc, internal issue yan.
Anyway, i-attach ko na lang po sa ano, no? Yung sinasabi ko. Pag ano na lang muna ako.
Yun. Andiyan na screen mo, Doc. Wala pa yung sinashare.
Okay na po, sir.
May screen ka na pero wala pa yung ano yung Doc.
Nakita nyo?
Ayan na, okay na.
Okay, sorry. Yan. So, yan siya. Ito yung mga pinagsusulat ko. Sensya, hindi nyo nakikita pala. Kala ko nakikita nyo. Okay, nilista ko kasi dito para at least may idea kayo. Mamaya i-screenshot. Kung gusto nyo mag-screenshot kayo. Na external issues, ito yung mga dapat mo i-consider kapag gumagawa ka ng analysis, no? No, context of your organization. Okay, internal issues. Tapos yung interested parties mo, yan, tulad nito, government. Kasi may pakialam yan sa inyo eh. May pakialam din ang regulatory bodies. Kasi kailangan malaman nila kung comply mo, na satisfy may requirement. Externally, ito yung mga suppliers mo, contractors, and customers, napaka-importante. Public or your community. And of course, sometimes may bisita kayo. So ito lahat yung interested parties. Pag gumawa ka ng context of organization, so ibig sabihin, pag sinabi mo context of organization, ang kumpanya ko ABC ay nasa lugar ng malapit sa ganitong probinsya na umuokupa ng ganito kalaking lugar na nasa bansang ganito. Kumbaga, kabuuan na siya ng lahat ng to. Kasi minsan naiisip, context tayo ng context. Ano ba ibig sabihin ng context of the organization? Okay? So, ibig sabihin, kung gumawa ka ng manual ng integrated management system, dapat yan nandoon lahat. Na i-consider mo pala lahat. Okay? Ano ba to? Single propriety ba to? Isa lang ba may-ari nito? O government-owned ba tong kumpanyang ito? Kasi nandoon yung management niya, leadership niya. Tapos, ano ba? Kaya normally sa isang management system, dinidepend kung ano bang klaseng negosyo meron kayo eh. Kasi kailangan mo malaman yung nature of activities. And from that, you will define what are the hazards and the environmental aspects that you may be encountering. So on and so forth. So eto na siya. So, punta na tayo dito. Balik na ako dito. Kaya siya, susunod po pakisabi kung akala ko kasi first time ako gumamit ng whiteboard, Microsoft Whiteboard. Natuwa kasi ako. Sabi ko para ako bumalik sa classroom. So, going back to what I have shown, you have identified, you have identified your internal and external issues, then your parties, ngayon, hindi ko pa ginawa, alam ko lang yung parties, pero ano yung mga pangangailangan nila, dapat yun, tanongin yun sa kanila. No? And what are those typical things? Siyempre, kung empleyado ka, dapat nasa oras yung sahod ko. Or better yung sahod ko. Tapos binibigyan ako ng laging. Meron akong, may plano sa akin ng kumpanya, hindi lang para magtrabaho, may improvement ako, pinapadala ako sa training. Ganun ba? Kung ikaw naman ay customer, syempre, gusto mo maganda yung quality ng produkto na bibilin mo. At saka, syempre, gusto mo rin sustainable yung organization, meaning lalo ngayon, matunog ang sustainability. Kailangan yung ginagamit na materyales, yung raw material, kailangan pro-environment tayo. So, yung mga ganun ba, may hinihingi ka sa government and na-expect na dapat mag-comply ka sa requirements. Tsaka syempre, dahil yung government, saan ba kumukuha ng pera yan? Sa mga kumpanya lang din na nasa bansa. No? So, gusto din niya magparami ka ng empleyado, lumaking business mo. So, kasi may tax revenue na makukuha sa kanila. So, ito mga itong needs and expectations ng parties mo. Then after that, you will document everything. Doon mo na idodokumento lahat. Yun na yung kabuuan ng context of your organization. Kasi yun yung, that is actually the current situation of your organization. That defines not only the geographical location or the boundaries, physical locations of your organization, but even the management aspect of your organization and the people involved that. And the people outside of that, okay? Then after that, you need to make sure that they are regularly monitored and reviewed. It's very important that your context of your organization is always being monitored. Because, for example, an organization initially in its infancy stage or new stage only have limited activities. Then as time passes by, they have increased. Like, for example, yung dati yung hindi ko alam dyan sa Pilipinas, hindi ako familiar eh. Dito, yung dati yung nauso itong pandemic, yung mga grab na yan na dati lang yan, kotse-kotse, ngayon naging mga motorcycle na, tapos dati nagdadala lang sila ng mga courier lang, tapos later on nagpapabili, pwede ka na rin magpabili sa kanila sa grocery. Kumbaga, if you'll notice, from the infancy stage, from the earlier stage of the business, you may have limited activities and of course limited hazards and environmental aspects. But as time passes by, you try to grow, improve. And by doing that, you're also improving or increasing the scope of your activity, which increases also the possibility of having incidents because increasing number of hazards and environmental aspect to the other environmental aspect of the organization. So, napaka-importante nun, no? Okay. Now, let's go to the leadership. When you combine all of these standards and you want to make it one integrated management system, all you need to do is just simply read the standard, try to compare which are common, which will not have any impact at all if you are already doing it, because like what I said, the resources needed for a company that has never been exposed to management system, okay, and wanted to go to integrated management system is totally different when you have an existing management systems and you're trying to simplify everything. That's the word here, simplify. Simplify means, kaya nga tinatawag sa amin ni Sir Albino, no? Laging sabi niya, keep it simple, stupid. Because we try to make sure that when you have an existing system, try to simplify it. No? Even in quality management system, they have lean management, which is, the objective is to remove the waste or something that is unnecessary in your process or in your system. Pero magkaiba naman kung wala ka talaga, no? From scratch, bigla ka nag-integrated management system, tapos hindi ka naman din ganun napakabigat. Isipin mo, yun nga lang, isatisfy mo yung isang standard, pahirapan na eh, tatluhin mo pa. So what I mean is, here, these are the common requirements as far as leadership and commitment is concerned. Taking overall responsibility and accountability, ensuring policy, so on and so forth. Like what I said, you will see all of this requires continual improvement integrated to the business process because that is very important. Unlike before, businesses do their own and they allow people to do separately as far as the managing of the system is concerned. Nowadays, you cannot decide something for your business without considering the impact to the integrated management systems. That's very important. And of course, at the end, the leadership requires that the system needs to achieve its intended outcome. And what are those? Like what I said, ano ba ang kailangan ng quality? Enhance that customer satisfaction and continuous provision of products and services complying with the legal and other requirements. At lahat ng aims and objectives, lahat ng aims na binanggit ko kanina, lahat yung intended outcome yun ng integrated management systems. Now, of course, because of their differences in their philosophy, there are differences also specific to the, at this should be part of your integrated management system. Tulad yan, quality lang ang merong process, approach, and risk-based thinking. Dapat yan, nandun yung sa, documentation mo as far as leadership and commitment is concerned. That you need to consider process approach and risk-based thinking. Hindi naman din mahirap kasi nga, kung ginagawa mo naman ay risk approach na sa 14,001 mo at 45,001 mo, then it's not a big deal anymore. You just need to declare, mention in your documentation that you're using a process approach and risk-based thinking. In leadership, there is a customer focus, which is not available or present in other two standards. Okay, so you need to mention that because actually that's the primary objective of the quality management system. Next to that is with regards to culture of the organization. It mentions in 45,001, but it doesn't necessarily mean that there is nothing mentioned in 14,001 or 9,001. It is not just explicit. Nakapaloob na kasi siya doon. Kaya hindi siya binanggit. Why is it that's very important for 45,001 to mention it? Because of the involvement of the worker participation. That's why it's very clear in the leadership that you need to promote the culture. Okay. Also, in 45,001, it is very specific that top management should protect the workers from reprisal. Ano ba Tagalog ng reprisal? Yung hindi ba sila babalikan? Hindi sila gagantihan. Nakitaan itong manager na to, naturing yung manager hindi nagsusuot ng ganito, ganyan. Kailangan. Pag ni-report yun, baka balikan sila. No? So the top management must make sure that the people have the luxury or the liberty of expressing themselves, reporting the incidents, being part of the management system. Next to that is ensure that the organization implements the processes of consultation and participation, which is very important. Like what I said initially in the earlier stage of my presentation, this 45,001 is so controversial because not all countries are willing to give workers that upper hand. Kasi pag binigyan mo, ang definition kasi, if you will go back to the definition of consultation and participation. Consultation is just to acquire ideas from the worker. It's passive. Ibig sabihin, passive. Ano bang passive? Hindi siya passive. Passive. Hindi siya active. Yun yung opposite ng active. Passive. While participation is actually allowing workers to engage in the decision making. Karamihan sa mga kumpanya, lalo dito sa Middle East, pagka naramdaman nila na porket na binigyan mo ng authority, pakiramdam nila nawawala na sila ng control sa tao nila. And number one, tinuro yan last time, one of the C in managing health and safety is control. Because that's the best, that is where management is very good at, to control people. To make sure that whatever they wanted to implement must be done in accordance to their requirement. And when the people were given this for consultation and participation, not all companies are willing to do that. Actually, when I was exposed to 45,001, during our audit, meaning we were certification audit, the external auditors were asking me about this. Then I asked about it in return. I asked them, okay, can you please tell me if you are auditing us with regards to consultation and participation, what do you expect as the objective evidence that we need to show to you that we are doing the consultation and participation? And apart from that, what is your objective evidence and how to make sure that there will be no reprisals? Then the auditors were looking at me. He was saying, are you the one who's certifying us or the other way around? Because they themselves were having difficulty. Some of them were traveling to Saudi Arabia. Oman, Qatar, lalo na sa Saudi. Alam niyo naman ang kalakaran sa Saudi. For those people who haven't been outside of the country, marinig nyo lang Saudi Arabia, alam nyo na eh. Ayokong siraan, pero alam nyo na. Bigyan nyo pa kaya ng otoridad yung tao na magsalita at mag-decide? Napakahirap. Then last but not the least is supporting the establishment and function of the Health and Safety Committee, which the good thing about this is in RA 11058. This is one of the most important aspect of leadership, which is being required by the standard. Now, let's go to the policy. Policy common to all of them, there should be a purpose. Size, context of the organization. Pinakita ko kanina yan. How to define the context of the organization. You need to provide the framework for setting objective. Why? Because the objectives, which will be your intended outcome of your management system, is very important for you to satisfy your policy. Next is you need to fulfill your legal requirements, and of course, there should be continual improvement. Yan ay common sa lahat ng policy, kahit na anong standard pa yan. Now, specific to every standard, ito na siya. Kailangan, I am making it in our language, no? Kailangan na dapat makita ito sa policies ninyo. Pag wala ito, non-conformity kayo. Findings kayo. Okay? There should be a explicitly clearly mentioned in your policy that there should be commitment to the protection of the environment. As far as 14,001 is concerned, there should be a commitment from the top management to provide safe and healthy working conditions for the prevention of injury and ill health. There should be a commitment to eliminate hazards and risks. There should be a commitment for consultation and participation. Remember, policy, what makes it so unique? Bakit ba natin, although the standard, you will see, in the standard, there is nothing mentioned that the top management, either your GM, CEO, needs to sign it. Pansinin niyo, wala naman nakasulat na dapat pirmahan. So dapat pala, pag ako'y nagpakita ng policy at walang pirma, dapat acceptable. Wala naman eh. Meron ba nakalagay dyan, it needs to be signed by the top management? Wala naman eh. Nothing. But what makes it important, why we ask our GM or CEO to sign it? Because actually, in other countries, they say policy is actually a personal document. Personal document, why? If you are the top management, if you are the leader of the organization, parang bangka lang yan, di ba? Pagka may mga dragon boat, yung nasa unahan, yun ang nagbibigay ng direksyon. So it means the policy is so personal to the person leading the company, because whatever he thinks, whatever he desires, whatever is the strategic direction that he wants to go for the organization, that should be incorporated in the policy. And since kanya yun eh, siya yung may gusto nun, kaya niya kailangan pirmahan to demonstrate that this is mine. This is mine. You know, when I was discussing with some of my students in Sweden, ang sabi nila, alam nyo, meron pa daw pagkakataon na may bagong CEO ang ginawa, nagpadala lang yung sinaunang sulat, hindi yung email sinaunang sulat pa through post, yung ano ba to, hindi ko tawag doon, snail mail ba tawag nila. Basta sinaunang sulat ng, nandoon, pinadala sa bawat tao ng kumpanya na nagsasabi, ako ay bagong CEO ng ating kumpanya na hangad ko ay nahangad ko ay ma-improve ang ating kumpanya. Hinihikayat ko kayo na magkaroon ng partisipasyon at involvement, at para malaman ninyo kung ano ang nasa loob ko, attached dito sa sulat kong ito ang policy ng ating kumpanya. Imagine if the company has 400 to 1,000 employees, 1,000 letters were sent personally by, of course, hindi naman yung GM gumawa, pero imagine the resources that the company wanted to show to demonstrate the leadership and commitment. that they are willing to inform each and everyone, like an introductory letter to each and everyone, that this is what I am. This is what I think. Ikaw na empleyado, pag nakita mo ito, anong mararamdaman mo? Di ba nakaka-proud? Nakaka-proud kasi hindi lang niya kailangang sabihin siya, head of the company siya. Siya mismo nag-exert siya ng effort para ipaalam sa bawat tao mula sa pinakamataas hanggang sa pinakamababa kung ano yung nasa isip niya at yun ay nakapaloob sa policy na pinirmahan niya. As I said, if an auditor will ask me, and if, for example, someone will present to me a policy without a signature, I cannot take that against him. Kasi wala namang nire-require ng standard eh. But best practice, and to demonstrate, remember, we can go back to the reasons behind why we manage health and safety. Why? Because one of the things is the moral responsibility. You need to demonstrate that you care. Duty of care. So when you care, you make it personal. Okay? I hope that everyone understands it. Next is the organizational roles, responsibilities, and authorities. That's very important, especially in the management wherein there might be some overlapping or interrelated functional level of each and every sections of the organization. You need to make sure that you know the roles and responsibilities. Alam mo, nakakatuwa kasi may mga kumpanya, nire-require nila yung tao nila, hindi yung health and safety tao nila sa taas at kahit sa ibang departamento, for example, sa mga operator, sa HR, pinapa-attend nila ng health and safety and environment related courses. Kasi ang tinuturuan namin, ano ba siya? Mga nasa management na walang kaalam-alam. Imagine niyo kung lahat na sana ng tao aware dito, not necessarily in our field in health, safety, and environment and quality. If they know all these things, there will be no conflict because they know what is the significance, the importance of the subject matter. It's very clear that this common standard should be there in your documentation. Okay? And these are the specific promotion of customer focus because it's 9001 and integrity of the quality management system. So lahat ng ito nandoon na nakapaloob dapat doon. Now in the consultation participation, like what I said, this is so unique in 45001 because of the involvement of the people. So in the organization needs to provide all this. So in your documentation, you need to show that you have allocated time, resources. There should be a procedure or process how you are consulting and allowing people to participate. And one of that is your health and safety committee. That is for participation. Consultation, like for example, whenever you wanted to implement something, are you asking the opinion of the people? Or when you're developing your risk assessment or your environmental aspect impact assessment, have you consulted them during the investigation? Did you ask the opinion of the people? Whether is it safe or not? Whether what are the hazards or the aspects involved? These are the things that need to be considered. Okay? So all of these requirements are very important to show in your documentations in order to satisfy 45,001. Especially this part. Consultation of non-managerial workers. Yung ano nyo, yung bellboy nyo, yung ano ba niya, yung kahit yung janitor ninyo, yan yung mga importanteng tao, security personnel ninyo, non-managerial yan eh. Natatanong nyo ba sila? Nagiging part ba sila? Natanong mo ba sila kung sa tingin ba nila, papaano natin masasatisfy yung objective natin? Kung sakali, kunyari, meron kang machine operator, natanong mo ba kung ano sa tingin niya yung mga kailangan para pag kumuha tayo ng contractor ay suitable para doon sa pangangailangan natin? These things needs to be declared. And take note This is part of leadership. So who has the overall responsibility and authority here? The top management. So hindi siya basta-basta pwede maglagay kung ano lang nang hindi niya kayang gawin. Okay, let's go to planning. Now, in the planning, this is actually your risk assessment and opportunity assessment. But as I said, I think when I mentioned that, I sent a message in Facebook, our messenger, that although opportunities is part of the requirement of the standard, we are not required to do opportunities assessment. Kasi pwede naman gawin yun eh. I-assess mo, gaano ba feasible ba o kakayanin ba natin? Realistic ba na mangyari itong mga opportunities na to? Pero hindi na kasi required ng standard yun. Ang required risk assessment. Okay, risk assessment. Kaya dito sa part na to, although it's covered, opportunities is covered, but we're not doing opportunities assessment. So common to all standards, 4.1. Ano ba yung 4.1? Ito yung external, internal issues mo. 4.2, ano? Internal and external interested parties mo. Ano yung 4.3? Roles and responsibilities. Okay? Roles and responsibilities. No. I think the 3 was scope of the management system. Sorry. Okay? So when you consider the planning, when you consider the risk and opportunities, you need to consider all these things. Then, intended outcome. Like for all, this is common. Undesired effects and continual improvement. These are all the requirements common to all the standards. And what about the individual standards? Like what I said, magkakaiba kasi sila ng philosophy. So therefore, their focus is different. But you need to cover that into your integrated management systems. The aspects, hazard identification and risk assessment, sa environment compliance obligation, samantalang sa 9,001 and 45,001 legal requirements, and planning action. Okay? For 14,001 and 45,001. May planning action siya. Okay? After clause 6, I will be stopping and then asking some questions. So after this, let's go to the objectives. Why is it very important, this objective? As I said, objective is the one that will tell us whether whatever we have defined in our policy have been achieved. Ginagawa ito, you are defining your objectives on annual basis, or annual basis or every 6 months. So, tinatanong kung gano'n na ba tayo kalayo dun sa ating inaasam, our aim. Okay? So, therefore, common to all standards, we need to define it should be consistent to the policy. Dapat doon nagmumula ang objective mo sa policy. You should not deviate from your policy. Parang katulad lang yan sa batas sa Pilipinas, no? Although pwede ka mag-create ng batas through Congress, pwede magkaroon ng batas through the judiciary system kasi nagbigay ng batas ng hatol ang Supreme Court, but all of these things should be within the philosophy of the Constitution of the Philippines. Hindi po pwede lumayo doon. Should not be violating the Constitution of the Philippines. Ito parang Constitution ng Pilipinas ito, policy. Ito yung dito dapat gumagalaw ang business mo. Okay? Anything that you do, you think, you act should be in line with your policy. It should be measurable. Okay? So ito dito pumapasok yung SMART. Specific, measurable, should be achievable, realistic, and time-bound. So there should be limitation. Hindi siya habang buhay. It should be monitored so that you know how far or how close you are with your objective. Should be properly communicated so that everyone knows and should everyone participate. How can you expect people to participate and achieve your objective kung hindi nila alam? And you should update it regularly. How? Every 6 months or every 2 months? It's up to you. And you need to achieve this. How, what, when, where? How am I going to achieve? What do I need to achieve? Who is responsible to achieve this? This is for W and H. Now, specific to this is for 45,001 because you need to conduct the risk assessment. And the result of this should be and the results of consultation. So the risk as well as the consultation. Any question at this point before I proceed to the support?
Wala pa naman po, Doc. Wala pang question ngayon. I think we can proceed. Mhm.
Okay, let's go to the support. This is the do part. If we look at the PDCA, dito nag-uumpisa yung do or the implementation side. Implement. So what are we going to do? Or how are you going to do it? First, you need to have resources. At napaka-importante ito kasi hindi mo kahit anong ganda ng ideas mo, kung walang resources na may bibigay sa iyo management, hindi mo rin magagawa. So that's why, you see, it is the responsibility of the organization first to determine. Okay? You should know what you require. Kung hihingi ka sa akin, if I'm the top management, bago mo pa sabihin sa akin yung hinihingi mo, dapat pinag-aralan mo muna. You should do your lesson. You need to present your case and provide the resources for the establishment, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement. Wala palang katapusan ito. Dapat pala, pag pumasok ka at balak ka magkaroon ng management system, dapat ito, pag nag-umpisa ka, walang katapusan. You need to provide resources. Hindi po pwedeng at the initial stage lang. Yung bang prinsipyo ng Pilipino na ningas kugon. Hindi pwedeng ganon. Kaya siguro hindi lahat ng mga kumpanya sa Pilipinas may management system. Kasi may ningas kugon tayo. Hindi pa pwedeng ganon. Okay? Specific to the standard, there should be capability and constraints of the internal resources. And what needs to be obtained from the external providers. Why this is very important for the quality? Because they are after with the customer satisfaction. They need to know whether the internal resources can be provided and what are the limitations and what do they require as far as the customers are concerned. And the requirements of 7.1.2 to 7.1.6. Ano ba yung mga yun? Ha? Ano ba yung 7.1 to 7.1.3? Balikan niya natin. Ito yun, oh. Gaano karaming people lang kailangan mo? What necessary infrastructure you require? What are the working conditions of your process? Environment for the operation is working condition of your processes. How do you monitor and measure your resources? It's very important, especially in quality management system. And what are the organizational knowledge? Meaning, what your intellectual property? Because the organization has that. What are the lessons learned in your project, in your products and services? Not only lessons learned because you have failed, even the success. Kasi para hindi na maulit, yun ay para sa failure. Pero kunyari, gusto mo namang i-duplicate yung ginawa mo, you need to learn also those lessons. So lessons, para hindi ka na mag-invento uli. You have already a system in place. Next to that is competence. Common are, of course, you need to have level of competence of each worker. And dito pumapasok yung components of your competence. You need to have proper knowledge. Enough knowledge that can be obtained through education, training. Okay? You need to have, di ba meron tayo K, knowledge. You need to have a proper attitude or aptitude of doing it, ability. proper training. You need to have enough experience to do that. And experience is actually the application of your theory of what you learned. You need to have proper skills. And last but not the least, you being a competent person, you need to know what is your limitation. Hindi yung mga bida-bida, yung mga feeling alam nila lahat, yung sa tingin nila, kaya nila lahat, para sa standard, hindi yon competent. Ha? Kasi one of the requirements of the standard is to seek advice, whether internally or externally. So the expert, kaya tinawag na expert because you are specific for a certain aspect. You cannot be expert for everything. Okay? So that's why one of the requirements of competency is you should know your limitation. So huwag tayong mahihiyan sabihin na hindi natin alam or hindi ako pamilyar diyan. At mas maganda nga, mas humbling nga mas nakakababa ng loob pag naringgan mo ang isang marunong na tao or tinitingalang tao, hindi dahil nasa poste siya, no? Tinitingala siya kasi marami siyang achievement. Tapos mariringgan mo siya ng, parang hindi ko alam yun. Parang ngayon ko lang nalaman yan. Uy, salamat may natutunan ako kasi ngayon ko lang siya narinig. Parang ikaw, kung ako sa posisyon na yun na nakarinig ako nun, parang ano pwede kong ipagmalaki sa taong ito? Ito sa tingin ko napakagaling na pero ganun ang wording niya. He knows his or her limitation. Because the only time that you start to realize your limitation, that you start to know things is when you start knowing your limitation, your vulnerability, they call that vulnerability, your weakness. Only then you will learn. Because if you know everything, there's no room for you for improvement. That's very important. Okay, these are all specific for the standard in 14,001. Training needs. It's very important for them. Okay. And take note, it doesn't necessarily mean that this requirement training needs is only required by environmental aspect. One of the good thing about integrated management system is that you can adapt and implement it to other management system. For example, hinihingan lang ako ng 14,001 ang training needs. Pwede ko ba kayang gawin din yung training needs ng quality ko? Pwede. Wala naman naglilimit sa'yo eh. Best practice yun eh. Pwede ko bang i-apply yung training needs ko rin sa 45,000 more? Kasi para malaman ko kung yung mga tao hindi lang nagte-training dahil sa mandatory, pero kasi may pangangailangan sila dahil to improve their competency. Why not? This is the good thing about integrated management system because you can implement best practices from one philosophy to another. There's no restriction. No one will stop you on doing that. In the first place, ISO itself is a best practice. Next is awareness. People should be aware. So common for all of this, dapat lahat ng tao alam yung policy. Policy is not like something on the wall. Nakalagay lang dyan, nakadikit lang dyan. Actually, wala nga nakasalagay sa standard kung saan mo dapat ilalagay ang policy eh. May nakalagay ba na dapat ilagay mo sa wall? Wala naman eh. Meron bang nakalagay na kailangan kahit saan sulok mo pwede ilagay? Wala naman eh. But it is required that everyone should be informed, awareness. So, kung every email na sinesend mo may naka-attach na policy, why not? That is one way for me to provide awareness. Every time I'm conducting safety induction, I'm discussing policy. Whenever I'm discussing in health and safety committee, every time dinidiscuss ko ang policy, why not? Auditors will not ask you whether you have your policy on the wall. No. Pakita ko sa screen ko, tapos yung screen na yan ay available or accessible to everyone and I'm communicating it regularly. I can satisfy the requirement of the standard. There's no restriction. That's the good thing about the standard. And they should know their objective. Hindi magagawa yung objective kung hindi mo siya i-inform sa tao. No? And it's very important that people knows their contribution to the effectiveness of the management system, to for them to understand their significance, their value, why they are important to the organization. Hindi lang managers ang importante, hindi lang supervisor, lahat ng tao importante. And dahil lahat nila importante, hindi lang magandang dapat nilang malaman. Ano din ang mangyayari kapag nag-violate sila or hindi sila sumunod. They should know the implication and the consequences of not conforming to the standard, to the requirements of the standard. And these are specific. No? Specific. Papansinin niyo, lahat ito sa 45,000 man galing. Bakit? Kasi dahil nga doon sa consultation and participation part doon sa center ng management system. So people should know what is the outcome of the investigation. People should know the hazards and risks and the actions taken. People should know how to avoid or to remove them from certain situations that may cause imminent danger or serious injury. So dapat alam nila lahat ito. Okay? Next is about communication. These are all common. These are the essence or important things that you need to consider when it comes to communication. They should know what is to be communicated, when, what, who, all these things. However, there are specific requirements of communication as far as 14,000 and 45,001. Because nowadays, since 45,001 has strongly considered the external and internal parties involved, then you need to consider how this has been communicated in various levels internally in the organization and also among the contractors and visitors. They need also to develop a communication process for obligations and information related to the environment and health and safety. And all requirements of 7.4.2 and 7.4.3. These are all requirements. Ano ba yun? Balik na tayo. Ano ba itong 7.4.2 and 7.4.2? Ito oh. Ay, wala. Hindi siya nakalagay doon. But there is 7.4.2 and 7.4.3, which is actually yung nabanggit din naman dito. Internal communication and external communication requirements. Okay? Last, in clause number 7 is documented information. As what we have discussed, they have made it simplified. When they say documented information, it means it is a procedure, either a procedure or record. Procedure or record. Procedure, these are the things that needs to be maintained. Record are things to be retained. Take note of the wordings. Pag yung procedure, mini-maintain mo siya. Katulad ng policy, ng objectives mo, mini-maintain mo yan. So, although hindi sinasabi sa iyo na isulat mo yan, hindi necessarily kailangan mo i-dokumento siya, no? Or may hard copy pa. Pero may mga requirements like in incident investigation mo, recorded dapat yan. In inspection mo, audit mo, recorded dapat. Kasi the requirement ng standard is to retain the documented information. Okay? Now, let's go to clause number 8. In the operations, if you will go back to the requirements of the standards, you'll see common for all standards, they have this. They have only to establish the criteria and the controls, implement the controls. Dumami yung 8.1 actually because of the 9001 requirement. Because of the products and services, conformity with the product services, Meron din, part of the operation, dito pumapasok yung consistent with the life cycle perspective. Dito na nilalagay yung controls mo when you identify your environmental aspects and impact. Okay? You need to have an adaptation to the workers, multi-employer workplaces kasi may mga katulad sa construction industry, hindi lang naman isa ang kumpanyang nandyan. Kailangan ninyo masigurado na nakakaintindihan kayo. And all of the requirements of 8.1.2, this is not 45,001, sorry. This is actually 9,001. Because if we go back, ito siya. Sorry, 45,000, I missed that. Kasi ito yung iniisip ko, no? Yung 40, yung 8.2 to 8.7. Inside the 45,001, the sub-clauses of 8.1, these are actually the requirements. Your risk, dito pumapasok yung hierarchy of risk controls. Yung elimination, substitution, engineering control, ito yun. Administrative control and your personal protective equipment. Ito yung sinasabi ko na dumami. 8.2 kasi emergency preparedness lang. No? In 9001, there's nothing mentioned about emergency preparedness. Nothing. Only 14,001 and 45,001. And the needs and capabilities of interested parties are mentioned in the 45,001 requirement. When you define or when you create emergency preparedness and response. Ito yung sinasabi ko na nagparami sa operation. All of these are requirements of 9001. Okay. And I have discussed this before when I discussed about the quality management system. If you'll notice, this is just the entire stage of the development or process of the products and services. You need to design and develop the product. Then, of course, you need to control the process. Then you need to produce and provide the services. Then you release the product and services. And then you control whatever is the output if it is non-conforming. So, itong requirements na ito, lahat ito recorded. Recorded. Should be properly recorded. Now, performance evaluation. So with regards to monitoring and measurement performance, these are common for all standards. Everything should be monitored and measured. Okay? Then you need to perform analysis with regards to results. Remember, why is it very important for us to have data? Remember, because decisions are made because of the outcome of your evaluation. Okay, database na ngayon. Hindi ka po pwede mag-isip ng bagay na gagawin mo without any proof or any evidence. Evidence-based ang tawag nila doon. Okay? So, why it's very important? Because it helps you to create trend analysis. I-analyze mo, ano ba yung trend ng ating insidente? Pataas ba? Pababa ba? Pababa ba? O consistent? No? Ano ba yung trend ng ating no? Pataas, pababa, or walang pagbabago? Okay? What? You can only obtain that the moment you have data. So therefore, you need to have data in order for you to analyze the trend. And that is very important, especially in benchmarking. If you wanted to benchmark or compare, pag tinawag na benchmark, kinukumpara mo either yung para magkakaibang departamento mo sa loob ng kumpanya. Kukumpara mo sila, ano bang performance nila. Pwede mo ring i-benchmark yung buong organisasyon mo sa isang organisasyon sa labas na may parehas na industry or parehas na produkto. For example, Starbucks tapos Coffee Bean sa Pilipinas, no? Ikukumpara para sila ng produkto at serbisyo. No? So, yun yung benchmarking na tinatawag. And you can only do that if you have enough data and information. Then, monitoring and measuring shall be performed. It's very important. Dito pumapasok yung, Ayoko na kasi mag-ano eh. Baka mawala na naman ako. Anyway, dito pumapasok yung monitoring mechanism. Ito yung leading indicators. Leading indicators. May mga nagtanong nakaraan about dito, no? Dito mo malalaman yun. Pag nag-monitor ka, nag-measure at nag-monitor ka, dito mo malalaman. Leading indicator, lagging indicator. Yan, lag. Lag na lang nalagay ko para maikli. Anong kaiba ng leading indicator? Bago mangyari ang isang aksidente, may aksidente, boundary, ito yung leading indicator. The purpose of the leading indicator is to prevent. Prevent. Okay? Burahin ko na yung iba para hindi nakakahilo. Okay. So the purpose of the leading indicator is to prevent the incident, prevent the accident. However, if the accident or incident happened, that is what you call lagging indicator. And the purpose of that is to correct. And what? Correct and to have lessons learned. Dapat may lesson kang natututunan sa buhay. Hindi po pwedeng wala. Kasi, no, sabi na nga ng kasabi, merong isang kilalang author, sabi, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Kaya paulit-ulit na lang ang Pilipinas, no? Hindi na makausad. No? Kasi madali tayong makalimot. No? Yun ay hatol ng isang magaling na philosopher. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Yun. Kaya sabi nila, unless you break that cycle, it will continue forever. So lagging indicators are actually indicators or way for you to measure or monitor after an accident. So ano ba yung mga leading indicators muna? Leading indicators, ito yung bago mangyari. Ito yung inspection mo, ito yung audit mo, ito yung safety walkthrough mo, yung naglalakad ka kasama yung manager mo, no? Ito yung sampling mo, survey. These are your leading indicator kasi nagbibigay ito ng indikasyon na ano ba yung kasalukuyang estado ng aking QHSE. Bago pa man may mangyaring insidente or aksidente. However, when you say about lagging indicators, these are ways for us to analyze what have happened in order for us to correct it. That's why we require corrective actions and knowing what has been learned from it so that it will not occur again, or they call that reoccurrence. And an example of that is statistics. We need to have statistics. We need to have incident investigation. Enforcement body notification. Kunyari, binigyan ka ng notice ng DOLE kasi hindi ka nagko-comply. No? Yan yung mga lagging indicator kasi nangyari na eh. No? So, court orders, may penalty or may pinakulong dahil hindi sumunod. These are all lagging indicators. Okay? So these are the specific requirements based on the requirements of individual standards. Sa 9001 kasi, customer satisfaction ang basihan nila and analysis and evaluation. Wherein sa 14 and 45,001, compliance-based kasi. Compliance-based sila. Okay? Now, with regards to audit, all of the requirements of audits, internal audits for all standards are the same. You need to comply all the requirements of the individual management system standards. Okay? 9.3, management review. Of course, at the end of the day, we need to review. Nandito na tayo sa checking eh. Check to eh. Ito yung sa PDCA check. We need to review the effectiveness of the controls, yung do part natin, yung support and operation natin, lahat yung controls eh. Effective ba sila? Effective ba yung training na binigay ko? Kasi sa totoo lang, okay, going back to leading and lagging indicators, ang leading indicators mo supposed to be kapag tumataas ang performance ng leading indicator mo. Mali. Ito ko lalagay. Sorry. Erase it. If I have the leading indicator at i-graph ko siya, yung performance niya, pag tumataas ang leading indicator ko, for example, ano ba yan? Number of trainings conducted, number of inspections conducted, number of findings that have been closed. So lahat yan, pag tumataas siya, supposed to be, it is expected na yung lagging indicators mo bababa. Kasi dapat bumaba yung number of incidents ko. Yun yung laging indicator ko eh. Dapat bumaba yung mga cases ko ng near misses at mga hazards na lumalabas. Dapat yun bumaba. However, it does not guarantee us that when your leading indicator is increasing, your lagging indicator will decrease. Because, like for example, if we will consider the leading indicator as the number of trainings conducted. Nakumpleto mo, no? Ang galing mo kasi na ano mo, no? Hindi mo nauto, pero nakumbinsin mo yung management na ipadala lahat ng tao mo sa training. Pero bakit gano'n? Napadala mo naman. Maayos naman ang training. Pero bakit nagka-aksidente pa rin? Baka hindi kasi effective yung training. Baka yung tao, pinadala mo, hindi naman din naintindihan. O baka maaaring hindi lang dahil sa training ang problema. No? Pero therefore, in effect, there should be a way for us to check each and everything in our process. That's why checking is very important in the PDCA part because after we have spent the time, resources, effort, ang tanong doon, maraming nagtatanong yan at yan ay mga normaling tanong sa mga ng management. Meron na tayong management system, pinagagastusan na natin to, binayaran natin to. Bakit tumataas pa rin yung ating mga kaso? Hiningan mo ako ng budget, sabi mo gawa tayo ng program na ganito. Nag-awareness campaign pa tayo. Bakit tumataas pa rin? Di ba? Yan yung question ng management eh. How? Why and how? Why is it that it's still increasing the lagging indicators, the number of incidents, where in fact, kung binibigay naman sa yung resources na kailangan mo, so you need to check, baka maaaring may kakulangan yung mga controls na nilagay mo that will lead to that will lead and affect the outcome of your exercise. So kailangan yon, hindi lang yung audit mo. Audit is actually what? It is a critical evaluation and analysis of your complete process. Lahat yan hahalungkatin. And why it's very important to have a management review? Because management should know what are the needs and expectations of the people and the people around the entire stakeholder. Yung condition, what is the current condition of the management system? And if there are gaps along the way, they need to know so that they can provide the necessary resources because at the end of the day, they are the one who have money to support. That's very important. And whatever will be the outcome of the management review, supposed to be that should be part of your HSE or QHSE plan for next year. Because whatever gap that you have identified will be part of your new objective. Kasi dahil kakulangan eh, yun ang magiging bago mong objective. At ngayon, sasabihin mo ngayon, mamonitor mo na ngayon, ito yung mga kakulangan, dapat ito, pag nasolve ito, mag-i-improve dapat yung aking management system. Okay? That's the essence of the management review. It is not like having lunch or dinner with the management, rubbing elbows with them. Ay, ka-close ko or nakatabi ko si GM kanina at saka si CEO. Hindi ganun yun. We are asking their commitment, their leadership and commitment to provide us the necessary resources And they can only do that if you have provided them the necessary information for them to decide. Otherwise, kung wala itong mga inputs na ito, okay, hindi rin sila makakapag-desisyon. Okay? And last but not the least, which is the objective of all management system, is for improvement. Okay? Ang standard, ini-encourage tayo na huwag biglaan. Unti-unti lang. Kaya nga ang tawag niya ay continual. Kasi unti-unti, akyat tayong konti, tapos posibleng to a certain given period of time, ito lang na-achieve natin, tapos maaaring a certain period of time, mag-degrade tayo, pero pwedeng makahabol uli. Kaya tinawag siyang continual kasi it is time-bounded. Pero, if we will consider the overall objective of the management system, that should be continuous. Walang katapusan. Walang katapusan. Ito, binibigyan ka lang ng oras ng management systems with the necessary resources. O sige, kahit pa paano, improvement na natin. Imbis na meron tayong manual handling para kasi ang nature ng business mo parang courier service, magbubuhat ka katulad ng nangyari sa pandemic. May mga nag-grab ba na nagpapadala. Ngayon siguro, bawasan natin yung manual handling. Bawasan natin kahit 20%. Meron tayong pwedeng implement na bagong policy or sabi natin equipment instead na buhatin ng tao manual. 20% is not bad to improve. Yun yung continual. Para hindi ka mapuwersa. That's the reason why when someone asks me, do I recommend to go straight to IMS? It all depends. It all depends to your management. Kaya ba nila? That is the ideal. Pag-IMS tayo. Pero kaya ba? Kaya ba ng resources? Kaya ba ng tao? Kasi ang management system mismo, ang ISO mismo, hinihingan tayo ng continual improvement. Hindi natin kailangang biglain. Okay? So, what are these? These are all common to all standards. Enhance customer requirement, meet customer requirements, customer satisfaction, environmental management system requirements, and occupational health and safety requirements. These are all their intended outcomes. And sa 9,001 lang naman ang walang ang walang insidente. Ang incident, meron lang yan, lumabas lang yan sa 45,001. So, non-conformity and corrective action, the purpose of this is to improve the system. Lessons learned. To correct the system and to learn the lessons of our mistakes. Mistakes and limitations of the management system. Kasi pag naman mistake, human factor lang yun. And we have learned in root cause analysis na majority ng mga problema ng isang organisasyon, ng isang kumpanya, hindi dahil sa tao, o hindi dahil sa management. And last is the continual improvement. Okay? These are all my references. And thank you very much.
Okay.
Ano ba? Stop ko na. Stop share ko na ba?
Pwede na akong i-stop share.
Okay.
Yan. Okay. So before po tayo magkaroon ng Q&A kasi nangyayari maraming umaalis na bandang Q&A portion, no? So first I would like to thank yung ating presenter for today, si Doc Roy, no? Since QMS pa lang. So hindi lang si Doc Roy, lahat ng mga nag-present, si Ma'am Jolibet, si President Albino, no? Dahil hindi ho madali magturo ng management system in around 4 hours kasi umaabot po normally ito ng isang araw for just awareness ho ng isang course. And here, tinuturo ho namin to ng at least at a minimum 3 hours. No? So we would like to thank those who have volunteered to present this management system, and we were able to complete this management system awareness month successfully. So in line with this, we would like to present the certificate of recognition kay Sir Rogel Importado for his outstanding support and contribution to FILSA and its advocacy during this training of Integrated Management System Awareness. Today, 26 March 2022, we hereby declare you as a real safety advocate, signed by the President and Vice President. Kaya maraming salamat, Doc. No?
Thank you also for giving me the opportunity. Kasi
Mhm.
nare-recall, I mean, that's the best way for you to retain your knowledge is to teach. Kasi
Exactly.
wala kang choice eh. Wala kang choice na balikan mo yung dapat ituro. Nakakaya naman. Pinag-ubusan niyo ako ng oras, kuryente, tapos ang mangyayari lang dito is puro lilitaw na slides na ng slides ang makikita ninyo. Siguro ano yun. For me, it is a sign of respect to everyone that I'm respecting each and everyone's time and effort by giving you as much as possible in my own way the suitable knowledge for us to understand at least the fundamentals of the management systems.
Exactly. And syempre, upon looking dun sa mga feedbacks actually for this management system, magaganda ko yung feedback. And although I know it has been a concern with regards the time, talaga kung mahaba ho ituro yung management system. No? And to be able to make this topic more concise and simpler for everyone, it really has been a challenge. Kaya maraming salamat sa ating mga volunteer trainers. No? And speaking of electricity, nakakasabi kanina ni Doc Roy, let us all participate today, Earth Hour. I'm not sure kung nag-start na yung Earth Hour sa Pilipinas. No? We're talking about management system, specifically rin environmental management system. So it doesn't have to be at 8:30, but let us just all take part and switch off our electricity, lights, and everything for 1 hour. And let's just reconnect with nature and with our family. So,
Napa-screenshot na muna tayo, baka mag-alisan sila.
exactly. So, ayun na po. Pwedeng pa-on lang po yung camera ng lahat. Let us all just take the screenshot. Okay. Iba, okay. Sige lang, Sir Mike, ulitin ho natin uli yung screenshot. And sabi nga ni Ma'am MJ ngayon na ang Earth Hour. No? So, antay lang po tayo. May mga Q&A pa naman. And recorded naman po yung session, so don't worry. Okay.
Angry bird.
Sige po, let us all take a screenshot. At the count of 3, let's all smile in front of the camera. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, may isa pa ho kasi marami-rami ho yung umattend ngayon sa ating training. Okay. Wait lang po. Okay, again. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Ayos. Okay, maraming salamat po sa mga nag-participate. Now, we'll proceed directly sa Q&A. The floor is open. You can switch on the mic. Kindly introduce yourself po para makilala kayo ng presenter. Sige lang po. May mga tanong po. Kanina may tanong po actually, Doc, from Sir Panfilo. No. Sa IMS po ba yung policy, pwede na ba nakalagay doon policy sa environment at safety and healthy, yung policy sa 14,001 and 45,001, parang halo na daw ba?
Wala pong problema as long as you are declaring it as combined policy. Baka naman kasi nakalagay sa policy niyo quality policy tapos nakalagay environment. Make sure that it matches to the contents. Yung pangalan ng policy niyo matches to the contents. Wala pong problema.
And going back ho dun sa tanong kanina, no, about sa performance audit, ano daw yung basis or tools? Nasagot na naman po ba to kanina? Yung tanong po kanina ni Sir Roger nung pasimula tayo.
Okay, ano mga eksakto ng tanong?
Ang tanong niya is, ano po ba daw yung basis or tools if ever magkakaroon ng performance audit?
The tools, actually, audit itself is the tool eh. Baka ano yung criteria.
Exactly, most probably.
Ang criteria when you are auditing, of course, it all depends on the scope of your audit. That's the reason why from the start, when you are auditing, you need to inform your auditees what will be the scope of your audit. Either ino-audit mo ba sila sa yung quality management system or quality management system lang ba, HSE lang ba, or yung lahat. Apart from that, kahit na for example, ino-audit mo sila doon sa standard na yon, pwedeng i-audit mo lang sila doon sa part ng standard eh. For example, i-audit ko lang sila sa sa incident investigation nila. Pwede ko silang i-audit noon eh. Pwede ko i-audit yung policy nila. How effective is the policy? Audit is a tool. It doesn't limit you to the wide or the narrow scope of that. But when you're talking about certification audit, that is different. When you say certification audit, in order for you to be certified, you need to make sure that you comply with all the necessary requirements stipulated in the standards. Pero kung sakali internal audit ang gagawin natin, tapos masyadong malaking organisasyon, hindi mo naman kaya, abutin ka ng 2 linggo, matapos mo lang, tapos ilang standards pa yan, pwedeng department-wise, i-audit mo sila sa lahat ng content ng standard. Kasi ang auditing may tinatawag na horizontal, Horizontal, may vertical. Vertical, ibig sabihin, lahat ng mga from the top down to the bottom of the organization, i-audit mo. Yun yung vertical auditing. Okay? At yung scope noon, it all depends still with you. I-audit ko lang ba sila sa incident investigation aspect? I-audit ko lang ba sila sa risk assessment, development, and implementation? Nasa iyo yun eh. Internal auditing to ha. Pwede din naman na horizontal ang auditing mo. Pag naman horizontal, pantay-pantay. I-audit ko lang ang itong departamento na to. Okay? Hindi ko i-audit lahat. Itong departamento lang na to. Okay. So, nasa iyo yun. Walang limitation yon. And the more audits that you have, being a leading indicator, meaning what you call active monitoring, tawag nila doon, active monitoring system, mas maganda. Mas maraming inspection, mas okay. Mas maraming audit, mas okay. As many as you want. The only limitation is your resources. Kaya mo ba? Sa dami mo ba ng ginagawa mo? Remember, a part of the auditing is to record because that is record keeping. Gaano kadaming information na kailangan makuha. And apart from getting the information, it's not enough that you got the numbers. You need to analyze it. Because at the end, you wanted to get something out of it. It's not like a matter of numbers. What is the meaning of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in your number? What's the significance of that? So at the end of the day, whatever information you have obtained from this monitoring methodologies like leading and lagging monitoring, yung inspection, audit mo, incident investigation mo, lahat yan, ang purpose niyan is para mag-improve yung ating sistema.
Okay po. Thank you po, Doc. Meron pa po bang mga questions?
May nagtanong dito, for our company, being a food processing establishment, we are more interested on certifying for 22001, which is a food safety management system. Will it still be IMS if we replace ISO 9001 with 22001 while retaining OSH and EMS? As I said, there's no such thing as certification into IMS. IMS is like a principle that you try to simplify whatever processes and documentations that you have with your existing management systems. So kung kayo, meron na kayong 22,001 certification, tapos dinagdagan mo siya ng 9,001, dinagdagan mo pa siya ng 45,001, pwede ka magkaroon ng iisa lang na documentation mo. Pero kapag yan, na-certify ka, si-certify ka individually ng ISO. Pumasa ka ba sa quality management system nila? Pumasa ka ba sa 14,001 standard, 45,000, 22,000? So therefore, there's no limit. Yun kasi yung wrong notion ng mga tao, integrated management system, one-shot deal. Kasi bakit kamo? Saan nagmula yung ganyang pananaw? Kasi sa damukmak na kasi naglipa ng mga training provider sa mundo na nagpapaka-shortcut. Nagbibigay ng mga training, okay, ng integrated management system. May mga naririnig nga ako na turing ang training ay for auditor. Take note, ha? I don't know whether internal auditor or lead auditor training for integrated management system, which is wrong. Kaya siya tinawag na training for integrated management system. You should cover all the standards, whatever covered in your integrated management system. So kung ako, a-attend ako ng lead auditor integrated management system, ano yung mga standard na nakapaloob sa IMS ko? So magkakaroon ako kaya IMS ko, 9,001, 14,001, 45,001. That only means na kailangan kong pumasa sa 3 examination na ibibigay sa akin ng ISO to become a certified 9,001 auditor, 14,001 auditor, and 45,001 auditor. Hindi yan parang sa palengking pakyawan o kaya bultuhan ba? Hindi ganun. Awareness can be given in like this one, can be given as one. But when you are being certified as a company, you need to achieve or satisfy the requirements of the individual standard requirements of each and every management system. Likewise, if you wanted to become an auditor for all those management system standards. I hope I answered the question.
Thank you po, Doc. Mukhang nasagot naman po. May follow-up question pa po ba si Sir Carl?
Doc,
Po,
yan, may nagtanong, kami na yata yun, between environment and safety of people, no? Kung sa implementation ng IMS, sino raw ba magiging priority? Yung environment ba o yung sa safety?
walang issue ang it all depends on kaya may context of the organization. Ine-evaluate mo yung level, yung exposure ng tao mo, yung exposure ng environment mo. Hindi it's at the end may tinatawag tayong risk acceptance. Tinuro nyo yan sa risk assessment, acceptable level of risk. Hindi nyo mo masasolve lahat ng problema, honestly speaking. That's the reason why organization requires to identify only significant risks, whether is it in the part of the environment, health and safety, quality, information security, food safety, whatever is that, the management should only focus on which are significant. Now, among those significant risks, okay, then that's the time the management will try to assess, can we satisfy this, yes or no? What is the level of risk that we are willing to take? These all questions will boil down to the culture of the organization, the policy, what has been written by the top management. Lahat ito doon babagsak. Kaya walang straightforward answer na sino mas ipa-prioritize. Hindi ito black and white na environment lagi o health and safety lagi. Hindi ganun. Depende yun sa organisasyon. Kung sa tingin nila mas importante ang tao kumpara sa environment, yun yung mangyayari. Kasi yun yung tingin nila eh. We're talking about it on the organizational basis. This is not an issue of which is right and which is wrong. It is a matter of whether which risk level is willing to take by the organization. I hope I answered sir yung tanong ko.
Tama naman, Doc, no? Base yan sa pinaliwanag ko rin nakaraan, no? Yung mga consequence pag meron kang na-implement na safety or quality, at the end of the day, pwedeng magkaroon pa rin ng closure ng company dahil nagkaroon kayo ng violation, no, sa environmental law. Yeah. But speaking of, siguro yung tanong lang nung nagpatanong nakaraan, siguro ang concern lang niya, siguro yung specific scenario wherein ano ba yung mako-compromise safety ng tao tsaka no. Kasi merong mga ano halimbawa, Doc, no, kung nag-iikot ka sa Dubai, nagda-drive ka, makikita mo yung mga project ng government, yung mga tinatayo, tinatanim nila, no, mga gandang mga landscape, di ba? And yet, nagko-cause naman siya ng blind spot sa mga paliko ng mga sasakyan, no? Which is nag-cause siya ng another risk, di ba? Yun nga yung mga napapag-usapan natin nakaraan na risk and opportunity. Baga nag-create ng program, na environmental program ng gobyerno para maging baga aesthetic, no? Tapos likewise in protection of the environment, di ba? And yet nag-cause naman siya ng another risk naman, no? Parang ganun.
So doon papasok sir yung level of risk na willing i-accept ng isang kumpanya. Ano yung level of risk na yon? Willing ba siya na because all of these things are all compromise. Hindi mo masasatisfy lahat. So, ang question na lang doon, kaya napaka-importante ng policy. As what I said, policy is a personal document by someone who's leading the company. And whatever will be the ideals, values, lahat yun makikita mo sa policy ng isang kumpanya. Masasalamin mo, I don't know whether my Tagalog is right, makikita at masasalamin mo yung klase ng personalidad ng namumuno when you look at the policy. Kasi siya yun siya yung pumirma Ikaw ba papayag ka pipirma ng isang bagay na ibang gumawa? Tapos at the end, kailangan kong gawin? Hindi. That's the reason why masasalamin mo, you can see from the document, from the policy, what kind of personality the leader of this organization have. And that's the reason why walang pagkakaiba. Kaya makikita mo kung maganda yung organisasyon, sure ako maganda yung namumuno. Kasi hindi ka na magtatagal sa kumpanya yun kung saliwa ka dun sa pananaw at paniniwala ng namumuno.
Totoo yun, Doc. Actually, ako nung na-audit kami ng Dubai Petroleum, ang unang hinanap sa amin yung policy, no? And chinek nila kung paano namin kino-communicate, yung signatory, kailan huling na-revise, ganun. Yung commitment, yung nature, no? Kung related to sa relevant ba to sa activity ng operation, ganun. I think may nagsasalita yata, parang boses ni Ma'am MJ.
Meron ba?
Sige po. Sige po. Opo.
Wala na po. Parang ang dami kong nasabi, parang walang ang tahimik Naninibago ako.
Napansin ko nga, Doc, nung nakaraan din, tahimik ng mga tao.
Ano
parang
masyado na bang simple yung ating subject matter at alam na.
Pero honestly, Doc, iintayin ko yung mga nag-attend dito, iintayin ko na maka-experience sila na magpunta ipadala sila ng company nila, no, sa mga ISO training. Then likewise, let them see kung yung na-experience nila sa PhilSA na libre parehas nung binabayaran nila, no. Kasi ako mismo personally nag-attend ako ng mga trainings, no, na kaya nga nung nag-meeting tayo, yun ang sinabi ko na baguhin natin yung style. Wag na yung typical o yung normal na style ng pagtuturo nung ISO para at least naman ang management system per se, no. Para naman kahit paano mas madali maintindihan ng mga tao. Oo.
Kasi sir, yung pagsunod, actually sa management system, basta marunong ka lang magbasa at umintindi, magagawa mo naman yung documentation. Hindi naman ganun kahirap ang English nila lalo na Pilipino, magagaling sa English. Ang mahirap yung paano ipatupad. Kasi yung pagpapatupad, depende kung naintindihan mo. At yun yung ginagawa natin ngayon. Na hindi tayo particular sa wordings, you can read that, you can go back, you have the standards, Kung gusto mo, memorize mo, wala akong pakialam. Pero once na pinemorize mo yan, kaya mo dapat sa akin yan sabihin ko anong ibig sabihin. Because hindi sapat na alam mo kung ano yung words na binabanggit mo. You should understand what is the essence of those words and how it should be applied to the organization. Because at the end of the day, the organization is expecting from us, people who are involved in the management systems, to improve the continual improvement, improve the situation of the company.
Tama, Doc. Tama. Oo.
May nakitang tanong dito, sir. What is the difference between ISO 18,000 and 45,001? Okay. Sino ba? Mr. John Christian Ramos. Pwede ko ba makita si Mr. John Christian? At ako'y
Hallelujah,
golden
Jesus.
na eh.
Panginoon, this time I'll be better, Panginoon. I'll be good, Panginoon.
Hello po.
Lord, forgive me for my iniquities, inadequacies. Forgive me, Jesus.
Mukhang naiba po yata sa coin ng
Ha?
na attendant. Opo.
Ang gusto ko nga pong biglang dumipay. Kala ko,
Nagulat din ako sa akala ko ano na nangyayari. Akala ko Earth hour lang eh.
So, gusto ko sanang dumipay at saka mag-hallelujah. Baka ma-offend. Actually po, sasagutin ko tong difference between ISO 18,001 and 45,001. Una po, ang 18,001 ay hindi ISO standard. Kaya nga kung papansin ninyo yung sinauna, ang tawag sa kanya ay BS. BS OSAS 18,001 because it was actually adopted from a British safety standard. Hindi po siya ISO standard. Like what I said, the only management system standard na walang pinagkopyahan ay etong 45,001. Na kung saan talagang dinevelop ito in line with the ILO requirements at lahat ng mga bansa na involved dito sa pag-create nito. Kasi nga napaka-sensitibo dahil sabi ko nga, the moment nakarinig ang management ng certain level of control na ibibigay mo sa mga tao, merong sense of threat na nangyayari, kabado sila. No? So, sipin mo, bigyan mo ng power ang non-managerial worker to decide on something because participation means decision-making. So 18,001 is not actually an ISO standard. It is a standard that has been adopted in British safety as our British standard. 45,001, like what I said, is the new standard in relation to occupational health and safety management system that has been developed and implemented by the ISO for their certification purposes. I hope I answered that.
Mukhang tahimik na. Siguro, Doc, kung wala na, I would like to congratulate yung mga naka-straight nung 4 na training natin, no? Kung sino man ho yung naka-straight ng 4, mag-send ho ng email sa PhilSA and baka magbigay ho kami ng isang free certificate, no, sa naka-4. Isa lang ho ibibigay namin. It's either yung last or yung isa po. So, muli po, Ma'am MJ, meron mo ba kayong
Meron po ganito, nakasulat, sir. Good day, sir. Ano po ba ang pinagkaiba ng pagkakapara ng 45,001 and OSHC po? Una po, ang OSHC, branch po, ano ba yan? Branch po ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas yan under the leadership of Department of Labor and Employment na kung saan ang mandato niyan or its mandate is to supervise yung implementation of the rules and regulations set by Department of Labor and Employment in relation to health and safety of the workers. Ang 45,001 is a standard, it's a self-regulating system, okay? Hindi po siya mandatory. They call that international standard. So it means na hindi siya mandatory, nasa inyo po yan kung gusto niyo magpatupad at magpa-certify. Pero the objective of the ISO 45,001 was to to have a structured process. Magkaroon ka ng struktura o framework para mas mapadali at mapabilis yung proseso ng management system mo. Yun yung essence no. Ang tao kasi talaga naman dinevelop tayo as a social being to have a system in place. Katawan nga natin made up of several systems, di ba? Respiratory system, circulatory system. Lahat tayo may system that makes us complete. Tayo lang din naman ang gumagawa ng dahilan kaya hindi tayo nagiging systematic. Pero dinevelop tayo ng Diyos para maging systematic. Napakagaling ng Diyos, napakatalino ng Diyos para gawin lahat na magkakasama sa isang lugar ay nag-work harmoniously. Tao lang naman ang papahirap sa sarili niya.